My name is Amanda.
And I'm Kristin.
And we are the Exorcisters. So sit back, relax, and let's get creepy. Welcome to episode 7. In this episode, we will be discussing Happy Death Day, the 2017 film, and also Happy Death Day to You, which is a new film that came out the same week that we're recording this. It came out on February 13th, and this will contain spoilers. So if you have plans to see the movie and you haven't yet, you should stop, go see the movie, and then after you've seen it, come back. But if you don't mind a spoiler review, then go ahead and proceed. I feel like it's been forever since we've recorded.
Me too. We did a double recording, and then you were with Brad, and I feel like I haven't been in here forever.
So it's been like 3 weeks since we've recorded together. I texted you, and I was like, man, I really miss it. It's been weird.
I know, right? And I feel like I don't even remember what to do anymore, because I haven't done it forever.
Well, we're going to have to just figure it out together all over again. So we went and saw this the day it came out, myself and you and your boyfriend Connor.
Yep, and hopefully a new friend. She came with us too. Shout out to her. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, it is always fun to have horror movie fans. However, going into this might be kind of horror loosely. This is a horror movie.
Even
very
the first
loosely.
one.
Yeah.
And the second one is even more loose.
Yeah.
Honestly.
It's a fun movie.
Very fun. It's really funny. There was one part where I thought I was going to die laughing.
And the second one? Or
the second one.
It is so a really funny movie. They're both funny movies. They're like fun PG-13 date night movies.
Most definitely. So before the movie even starts, we start with the Universal Studios logo, and I really like the beginning because it's different from any of the others. It just starts to do the logo and the song, and then it stops and flashes, and then it does it again, and then it stops and flashes, and then it does it again, and then it stops and flashes, and it goes
deja vu maybe
through. Exactly. It's great. It's a really good lead up, and even the second one does a similar thing. Mm-hmm. It starts to do it, and then it cuts, and there's another one
right next to it.
Yes, dual screen.
Like split. Yeah.
And then they do it again, and there's 3 of them. So it's really cool that they do some cute things like that in the beginning.
The first one, the main character's name is Tree, like Tree, but her name is Teresa.
Right.
But you call her Tree, and she is a pretty typical sorority blonde. She's a bitch to everyone. She's really snobby and stuck up, and not a lot of people like her.
Right.
So it's interesting, as we'll talk about in a minute, her character development, because this whole movie is premised around this character's development. Mm-hmm. But she starts off such a bitch.
Yeah. Just like a Mean Girls
Exactly.
type of person.
Exactly. And, sororities get a bad rap because they're not, I know plenty of my friends that have been in sororities, but this is like the typical movie
Absolutely.
sorority where they shit on everyone that's not in with them, and they're mean to bigger girls or girls that don't wear makeup, things like that. She's very judgmental. So it starts out on Tree's birthday, which is why it's called Happy Death Day, because it's her birthday. And it kind of shows how much of a bitch she is, because she comes in, she wakes up, and she's in this random guy's room, his name is Carter. He'll become important later. And she's like, who the fuck are you? And she's like, just give me my shit. Do you have Tylenol? And I'll be on my way. And she's just, going through, and she gets back to her sorority house, and she shares, she's roommates with...
Well, first, along the way, she's treating everybody shit. Like, there's a person who asks for her to sign a petition, and she just ignores her and walks away. And she watches these kids get hit by sprinklers, doesn't say anything. Watches some kid fall over, doesn't say anything. There's some guy that took her out on a date, and she has this really cruel line of... He took her to Subway for their first date, and it's not like he had a foot long, which actually was the actress. She ad-libbed that. Yeah. That was her joke.
They said, the director said that she did that quite a bit. Like, she was just really funny.
Oh, really?
She
did the whole thing?
Yeah, she did a really good job in this movie. She's something I really enjoyed about this movie, Jessica Roth.
She did a good job.
She did a great job. She's a good actress. But she gets back to her sorority house, and she walks in. She's roommates with a girl named Lori, and Lori's all excited because she made her a birthday cake, and Tree's like, it's too many carbs, and just throws it right in the trash. So it just kind of gives you a glimpse of, like, how much of a bitch she is. Right. And Lori's just like, what the hell? You're not going to eat the cupcake I made for you? I made it from scratch. And she moves on. And then you see her move on, and you find out that she is sleeping with her bio professor, who is a doctor at the university hospital, who is married.
Right. And her roommate knows. She kind of, they have like a thing right in front of the elevator where you realize that Lori knows that she's doing this.
Yeah, Lori's like, you shouldn't be doing this or whatever. And Tree's like, it's none of your damn business.
Right, exactly.
And that's pretty much where that ends off. And Lori comes off as very caring, like, hey, like, it's probably not a good idea to get wrapped up in this. And Tree's just like, F you, I don't care.
Yeah.
And moves on. And his wife ends up showing up before they get jiggy with it.
Yeah, and how did she make that? Like, she pushes the chair against the wall, this rolling chair, and manages right under the freaking
Because
candle.
It's a cheesy movie.
Exactly.
It's, like, not a bad cheesy,
but in real life, how many times would she have to practice that?
Yeah, it was definitely on a string or something. She basically just goes to her... She sleeps with this guy, and then she's back at her sorority house, essentially. And, well, she doesn't sleep with him this time, because the wife... Yeah, but... She visits him to sleep with him and doesn't get around to it. And it shows her back at her sorority house, and her sorority sisters, there's the head of their sorority is Danielle. She's a bitch. They're just mean girls, like you said.
Yep.
Which is the whole thing here. And it's her birthday, so they're having a party for her. She doesn't know that because it's a surprise party.
Right.
But they're having a party for her, and so they're like, hey, when are you going to be at the party? And she's like, oh, I'll come eventually. And then there's a blackout. And this is not the first time this blackout has happened.
Right.
And
something on campus is causing this.
Right. She ends up walking to this party by herself at night through the campus, which, college campuses at night usually are pretty busy, so it's usually not that big of a deal to walk around alone, you know?
In a skimpy dress with, no offense, but seems like some rowdy, drunk teenage boys.
Yeah. Young adults or whatever.
Exactly.
And she's walking around, and you see all these people in this stupid fucking mask. Can we just talk about Bayview University? Is that what it's called? Bayview?
The babies?
Yes.
Their mascot? Who would have a scholarship for football to go play with the babies and want to do that? Who would want to go play the babies? Well, probably everyone. But being the babies, like, that's horrible. Yeah, I'm a baby.
I gotta give them, it is kind of a creepy mask.
It is a very creepy mask, but the whole mascot of that school in real life,
who done that?
Exactly.
There's no real backstory except for, like, if you look up the movie, it says the director was expecting a baby when he was filming, and so he said he had babies on the mind or something like that, so.
Right. The creator of that mask actually also created Ghostface for Scream, which was kind of cool, but.
Yeah, and he does special effects, and he's very involved in the horror movie community. He does, like, special effects and things like that for a lot of movies, so that's kind of cool. And again, it is a creepy mask.
It is, but it's a stupid mascot.
Yeah, it is a stupid mascot. By the way, I apologize if I'm, like, kind of sniffly. I literally have gotten sick every time we've recorded.
I'm pretty sure she's allergic to podcasting, but we're going to make it through.
Man, I have been so sick for, like, a month now with bronchitis, and it's clearing up now that I'm on horse pill antibiotics and promethazine codeine syrup, which, I mean, that
making
shit
you sleep?
Not remember things. Like, it's intense. So I apologize if I sound kind of gross or if I mindlessly sniff, because I just did that when you were talking, and I was like, oh shit, can't edit that out. So again, I apologize in advance. So she's walking through this tunnel. There's all these flashing construction signs, and I'm like, is that really the only way to go?
Exactly, down this creepy tunnel by yourself, once again in this skimpy dress, when people seem to be rowdy right now. A lot of signs on why would you do that.
There are literally flashing signs.
Right, exactly.
Don't do this. And there's a music box sitting right in the middle of the tunnel. And let me just tell you, if I saw a music box, like and it's playing Happy Birthday, in that very creepy music boxy kind of tonage. If I even just saw something sitting in the middle of the tunnel by itself, I'd turn my ass around. It's in the middle for a reason, because
someone wants your attention.
Right. They either want you at the other end, or you're going to try to run away and they're going to be at that end.
Right.
Either way, you're going to be distracted.
Right.
And they're going to come up on you. And so she leans all the way down to inspect this music box. And I'm like, no. And then there's a little standoff. So there's... Yeah, no, go ahead.
I have so many problems with the music box. Like, she gets to the other side of the music box, so it's behind her, and then it turns back on. So that means someone had to go behind her, turn it back on, and then hide again. Where? Where did they hide? Did she not hear them running?
That's
what
true.
Is going on?
Yeah.
I'm so confused about the music box. I don't understand. I understand what it's really needed for, honestly.
Just a horror movie gimmick.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But if you put it in real life things, which I know you shouldn't always do with horror movies, and I shouldn't be doing it now. I should ignore it and let the movie be. But how? How did they turn it back on?
Yeah, I thought the same thing, actually. It was like in my notes, I was like, okay. All of a sudden, it's just there. And so there's this standoff, and you see a figure. It's not really, it's pretty androgynous. I mean, it's a black sweatshirt, jeans, hoodie, baby mask. Like, you can't really tell if it's male or female. Right. It looks like a male, the figure, but again, you can't really tell. And there's a little standoff where they just stare at each other, and she decides, after like, can I help you? Like, you don't ask questions.
Yeah.
Just take your heels off and run.
Exactly.
Take them off, ditch them, and run. And then the standoff ends in the first kill. Her first death. She gets stabbed and wakes up again to her "It's your birthday" ringtone that you hear over and over and over.
You ain't gotta pick up the phone.
Yeah, exactly. And they actually were gonna use, I think, a 50 Cent song
in the club.
Yeah, and they couldn't get the rights to it, so they just created this like, "It's your birthday,"
which honestly is better and fits way better. And I think
theirs. So when people like get that stuck in their head or hear it, or I bet they're selling it as a ringtone, it is specifically Happy Death Day specific. So not a bad idea in the first place. But she wakes up in the dorm room of the guy that she woke up, Right. Except this time she's confused. She's a little bit nicer because she's like, hi, can I have some Tylenol? And she's like, gets over there. And
right, because it's seeming oddly familiar to her.
Yeah, and he's like, yeah, sure. And so she puts on her clothes and then she does her walk of shame. I wrote down the order of the things that happen. And there's this dude, and I wrote down Chris Angel, because he's like in all black and long hair, and like, the magician in Las Vegas.
I know who Chris Angel, I'm trying to remember him in the movie.
He just walks by her, and he like looks at her weird, and she walks by him, and then the global warming petition, and then the sprinklers go off, and then the car alarm, and then the frat boy passes out, and then the dude she went on a date with, she runs into, and he's like, oh, why didn't you call me? Meh, meh, meh. And she does this walk of shame over and over in this movie. Right. And that's exactly the points she hits. And so my question was, did they like film these same scenes perfectly over and over and over?
Right.
You know what I mean? Because they have to be, she's different in each one of them, but every single time they act it out, it has to be perfect to a T. The inflection on their voice, their facial expressions, the way the guy passes out, like everything has to be perfect. And it seems kind of, I'm not saying computers can't do it, because they absolutely can, but it seems kind of like they would actually do that many takes of the different scenes.
Right.
And I think they did. Correct me if you know any different. But I'm pretty sure they just filmed it over and over.
Yeah, I feel like they only filmed it, I was doing some research, and I feel like they only filmed it like 2 or 3 times of that. So they didn't have to do it over and over and over again, I don't think. But I mean, that's still 3 times of having to do it exactly the same. That's still quite a bit.
It's a lot to ask from actors, especially just like, they're more than extras, but they're
like
not essential.
Big names.
Yeah,
or anything,
right. She also, when she gets back to the sorority house, there's a girl sitting outside that waves at her, and her sorority head's like, hey, we have a house meeting at lunch today. And so, all these things. There was more that happened that day. Like, the guy she was with ran into her and spilled on her, just little things like that. But she's, living the same day over and over. So when she goes back to her sorority house, the head of the house or whatever is like, hey, there's a house meeting, and she gets up to her room, and her roommate's like, look who rolls in or whatever, and here's your cake. And she always has excuses and never eats the cupcake. And her roommate's like, come on, eat this cupcake I made for you. I worked hard on it. Come on. And then it follows the same formula. She's late. She's late to class. She goes to see the professor in his office at the hospital. Wife walks in, yada, yada, yada. So all these same things are happening. The only thing that changes is every time she comes back, her behavior is different, obviously. Because she's kind of figured it out the second time, but she's kind of like, maybe I just had weird deja vu or something. But she has the surprise party that night, which she didn't get to the night before because she got killed before she got to it.
Right.
And so she goes into this house and opens the door, and there's a dude in a black sweatshirt and jeans and a baby mask, and she decks him in the face.
Which is awesome.
Yeah, and then it turns out that he's just some dude, and it's her surprise party. And This was probably one of my favorite scenes. This guy named Nick, Danielle, her best friend and the head of the sorority, really likes this guy. And apparently he's into Tree, and Tree's made out with Danielle's love interest before. Right. So Danielle's like, don't you fucking dare. But Tree goes up to this guy Nick's room. And I thought this was so funny. And he puts the mask back on to scare her because it scared her the first time. And he says, he took the mask off and he looked at her and he said, welcome to the Pleasure Dome. And in this room, he's got a disco ball. He's got all these like laser light shows. And so he turns on this music and he just starts bumping, like dancing like an idiot. And she's like, oh my God, I'm so over this. And she's like turned around texting someone, and you see the actual killer come out of the closet.
And it's so loud so she can't hear what's going on.
But the killer kills Nick right behind her.
Right.
And what got me was she turns around and like looks at him and is like, Nick, I'm over this. Like, I don't want to do this. Take the mask off. Nick is laying dead right next to him. And she doesn't like, if I looked behind me right now, I have peripheral vision. That's a thing. I would probably see, and I guess it's dark and there are lights and all this stuff going on. There's a body laying there. And so, of course, a struggle ensues. And she fucking dies again.
Yeah, she gets stabbed. Oh, but not before some other dude opens the door and basically sees what looks like she might be getting date raped.
Yeah.
And he just laughs and walks away.
He's super fucked up and he's like,
yeah, like basically going, good job, and then leaves. What the fuck?
I don't know, man. Like, I'm not trying to be, this is a horror movie podcast, so I'm not trying to be political, but it's kind of like highlights a lot of problems, you know?
Right? But yeah, so she gets stabbed with, I don't remember what he broke off and stabbed her with. Was it a bong?
Yeah.
Okay. And then she wakes up again.
And then day 3 begins. And so she does the same thing. She does the same walk of shame. She wakes up in Carter's room. Same walk of shame that she does. She gets to her sorority house. And this time she tells Lori that she's living the same day over and over. And she's totally losing it. Like, she tells Lori someone's trying to kill her. And so she's freaking out. And this time, she's not fucking playing around. And it cuts to nighttime, and she's boarding up her windows, and she pushes her dresser in front of her door, and she has no intention of leaving her bedroom. Which is pretty, I was about to say, that's pretty smart. You know, if somebody you know is after you, the safest thing to do is to control your exits and your entrance points.
Right.
I think that I'm really paranoid because, of course, I think it goes kind of hand in hand. People that are into horror movies are usually into true crime.
Yeah.
Serial killers, spree killers, and since I research a lot of spree killings specifically, I'm always aware of my entrances and my exits and all those things and who's around me all the time. You were mentioning that to me.
I was going to say, we were actually talking about that literally today, as how I was leaving Barnes & Noble the other day, and I just was super aware about, there was a car over there was someone driving there was someone sitting at a table over there. I just know exactly where everyone is at all times in my surrounding.
Yeah.
Which I attribute to horror movies and true crime. Absolutely.
Yeah. And so if you're in that kind of situation, it's not a great idea to back yourself into a corner. But if you know that where you're at is safe right now and you can keep it boarded up and controlled and you cut out those loose variables, then that's probably honestly what I would do in her situation.
Absolutely.
Board myself up in a bedroom and...
Yeah, and just wait it out.
And you can't live like that, but you could at least... I mean, she's trying to save herself right here, right now.
Right, she's trying to survive the day.
Exactly. And so that's exactly what I would do. But, of course, nothing works out. Like,
right.
She sees a birthday card in her room, and she opens it, and it's the mascot, the baby mascot.
Yeah.
And it's kind of got this little tune to it, like those annoying ones that you open up and it sings. And it says, enjoy because there's no tomorrow. And then spooky stuff starts happening. The whole formula horror movie things. The TV is cutting in and out.
Right.
There's the blackout that happened. You know, it happens the same time because it's the same day. Right. Over and over. And she hears, the TV comes back on and she briefly hears this news story about a killer at the university hospital. But then she thinks someone's in her bathroom.
Right.
Which, How? A lot of this movie, you're like, how? What?
Right. She's
Why?
boarded everything up. She's blocked it all. How did he get in there?
And yeah, a lot of this movie, you're like, what the? How the? What? Again, formula horror movie where she's walking very slowly. Doesn't turn on the bathroom light. I don't remember if this is during the blackout, but I don't think it is.
I don't think so.
It's a
Because
quick
I think
blip.
it's just that room.
Yeah.
So
she doesn't turn on the bathroom light. And she goes in and she's walking very slowly towards the shower curtain and she's right about to whip it back. And of course, that's a formula suspense moment in horror movies. And the killer ends up, guess what? Being behind her.
Well, yeah, because she flips around because the TV turned back on all loud all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Which, how?
Right.
How did that happen? Oh, wait. An epiphany. Maybe the killer had an extra remote?
Maybe.
Okay.
It would.
Okay, I could deal with that one.
It would make sense, you know, if you have to kind of fill in those blanks for yourself. Yeah. And movies in general, but also horror movies, they don't owe you an explanation for a lot of these things. A lot of it is left up to interpretation. But there was just a lot in this movie where you're like, why and how? Because, like, in Halloween, you know why and you know how. You know, how he escaped, how he ended up there, all these things. So they're going for, like, a slasher here.
Right. But the problem with slashers is they're usually just incredibly strong. They're not also supernatural and can just randomly turn on the music box and stuff like that. So that's a little different.
Yeah. It, again, leaves a lot open to a lot of open-ended questions. At least she does a really good job of arming herself.
She does.
In all of these.
She slowly gets to be such a good person at surviving. She's so good at that.
I guess if you get a lot of chances.
She dies a lot.
Yeah, exactly. She dies a lot, so she learns how to survive. Right. So that's what I literally wrote down here. The killer ends up behind her, and she knocks him with a hammer. And I wrote, she's quite the fighter. She's got a lot of fight.
She really tries.
But she doesn't. Yeah. She doesn't win. Right. And she wakes up on day 4, and she is in full freak out mode.
Yeah, as she should be.
Yeah, I mean,
she's died 3 times now.
Yeah. And also, living the same day over and over and over, even if you weren't being killed and you just kept waking up on the same day, I don't know how much longer I would want to be alive.
Yeah, fair.
Like,
that just sounds so terrifying. You're just waiting to die every single day.
Yeah. She ends up asking Carter for help. She told Lori, you know, somebody's trying to kill me, da-da-da, and Lori's just like, chill the fuck out, bruh.
Right.
But she ends up telling Carter, like, please help me. And then she tries to explain it, and he's like, okay, let's say this is true. Why is it happening today? What's symbolic about today? And she's like, well, it's my birthday, but that's not a big deal. And he's like, yeah, it's just it's symbolic for something. And they make a list of suspects together. And she realizes there's a lot because she's been really horrible to a lot of people. Something that, this was intentional because they don't do things in movies like this unintentionally, but it drove me fucking crazy. All she has to do is take her fingers and rub underneath her eyes up, and that eyeliner that's just running down her face is gone. Or at least better. She's just, I guess at this point she doesn't give a fuck, but she's just got, the whole movie, she's just got eyeliner just smudged all under her eyes, and I'm like, girl, just get away with your fingers. It's obviously not good eyeliner. So just get rid of it. It drove me nuts. I wrote it in caps right there. And so they come up with a plan for her to keep dying until she figures it out. So she starts spying on all these suspects, basically. And the first one she puts on her list is Tim, which is the guy during her walk of shame that she says, you don't take a girl on a first date to Subway.
Right.
And she's like, well, maybe it's him because I blew him off. And she goes and spies on him and looks in his window and sees him watching gay porn. Right. And so she's like, not him. But then she turns around and gets killed. And so the next day she's like, okay. She's looking at Stephanie, which is Gregory the doctor's wife.
That's who she was watching? For some reason I thought it was Danielle. Okay, that makes more sense.
Yep. And that's when she is watching at their mansion and there's a pool. And for some reason she thought, oh, pool, that's fine. And she gets drowned. She wakes back up. And now she's looking at Danielle as a suspect, but then they get into a cat fight.
She beats the crap out of her.
And then she gets killed. So Danielle's off the list. And then this day that she wakes up, she takes a naked stroll through campus just because she can. Because she's at this level of like, fuck it. I'm going to die anyways. I can do whatever the fuck I want right now.
Right.
And that naked scene, this was filmed at a university in Louisiana. And school was in session when they filmed this. And she was actually fully nude when they shot this, which they don't even it's PG-13.
Right.
They don't show anything. I mean, it's just her shoulders up, basically. So why make her walk around naked?
But students wandering through campus that actually went to school there got to see everything.
Yeah, and the crew had such a hard time, like, dealing with the bystanders and trying to get them not to watch that they only had, like, 2 takes of this.
How many times do you see... Well, I don't know, it's a campus. Maybe you see a lot of naked women just wandering through. I don't know.
I don't know either. I didn't go to a big school like
Exactly.
that. But... yeah, so every time they cut, they had, like, female crew members, like, running to her with jackets to cover her up. And I gotta give her kudos for that. Honestly, I'd be like, this is PG-13, right? I can just, like, tape my boobs and, like, wear a skirt or a pair of shorts or whatever, and nobody's gonna know. But I guess she's not a half-ass person. She went full ass.
Oh, my
God. And, you know, she gets killed. These kills are happening quicker and quicker and quicker because right now she's just we're in the montage phase of the movie,
right.
You know, and she just keeps coming back and she's like, man, this fucking sucks. But every time she comes back, she realizes that she's getting weaker. She keeps waking up with, like, this pain and she keeps holding her stomach. So something is happening, and she wakes up this time and she passes out and wakes up in the hospital, which is a change to her day.
Which seems very drastic. Like, she wakes up and passes out and ends up in the hospital. But then, I know I'm jumping ahead of a second.
Yeah, go ahead.
She continues to die a couple more times, and those wake-ups don't even seem to affect her. So what the heck?
They had to throw in this hospital scene
to,
I guess, set up the rest of the movie, and that's how they did it. The doctor she's banging tells her it's amazing that she's still alive because he's got these scans of her body, and her injuries seem like they're lasting, and they're forming all these scar tissues. Like, every time she's been stabbed, it's got scar tissue, and he's like, I don't know how you're alive. It looks like you've died. Like, it's amazing. And she's like, yeah, blah, blah, blah. And she tells him that she's thirsty, and since they're banging, he's like, okay, I'm gonna get you a soda. And she bails from her hospital room and sneaks into his office.
Oh, what she yanks the thing. Why do they always do that in horror movies? That looks so painful. They, like, just yank. But there's
the
tape
out.
And the IV, which are going 2 separate ways. So how do people do that and not just hurt the crap out of themselves? I don't get
Maybe it's adrenaline.
Oh,
I mean, if you're trying to escape the hospital, you're like, gotta get out, gotta get this shit out. And so, I don't know, I've never yanked a needle out of my arm.
I think that's where I'd fail. I'd be like, the killer can come get me because there's something stuck in my arm and I'm freaked.
I'm fine. I'll just die here. But she bails from her hospital room and sneaks into his office, and she's going through his drawer to find car keys, and she finds a baby mask.
Right.
In one of his drawers. So you're like, oh, shit, he's trying to get rid of her.
Right.
Which makes sense. It's interesting because in the last movie, when Brad and I talked about My Bloody Valentine, it makes you think that it's Axel trying to get rid of the side hoe that he impregnated, you know? And this kind of makes you think the same thing. But really quickly you figure out, I wrote, it ain't though, because the doctor gets stabbed.
Yes.
And she runs away, and the killer's running after her. And Brad actually mentioned this killer actually runs.
Like, that's a good point.
Because a lot of the other ones just kind of stalk.
Like Michael Myers.
And, like, show up somehow.
They just use that fear of you being chased.
Like cat and mouse.
Exactly.
Yeah. But this killer actually hauls ass after her. And they end up in a parking garage, and she has the doctor's car keys, and so she, like, sets off, like, the little lock sound.
Right, because she can't find it.
Right. Which is really smart until you're also have a killer that if gets wind of if that's the car you're going to, he's going to try to beat you there. She does end up finding the car and getting away, and it's very close though because she literally gets in the car and he falls down. I think she, like, hits him or something like that, and he stumbles and she gets in the car. It's a very close call. He actually bashes in the window, but she ends up reversing really quickly, smashes into another car, and is able to get away. She's so exhilarated, like, she's screaming, yes, I did it! Right. She's laughing and smiling, and then she gets pulled over in a stolen Mercedes.
Yeah.
And the cop is like, are you drunk? Like, she's in a hospital gown, she doesn't have ID or anything, and she's like, if I am, does that mean you have to take me to jail? And he's like, yeah, that's what it means. And she's like, cuff me, take me to jail.
So smart of her. I was so proud of her to do that, because that's what I would do. Is yes, absolutely, take me in, put me in a jail cell. No one can get to you.
Yeah, she's like, yes, pills, alcohol, weed, all of them. I'm fucked up. So he's like, okay. He handcuffs her, throws her in the back of a cop car, and then gets nailed by a car, which you immediately you're like, ooh, killer got a car. And this is an interesting kill because she's handcuffed in the back of this cop car, and she's like, what the fuck do you want? Yelling at him or her or whomever it is. And the killer gets back in their car and has this little birthday candle that it lights. And this car got sideswiped, the cop car, and so it's leaking fuel. And you can guess the killer drops the candle, and the car explodes, and she wakes up. And it sucks. This would be so frustrating because you told Carter about this already.
Right.
And she wakes up and he has no idea. So she has to explain it again. But instead of explaining it, she's like, here, come with me. And she's like, petition, sprinklers, car alarm. He's going to pass out. And Carter's like, you know exactly what's happening. You know? And then she goes out to dinner with Carter. And it's so funny because she burps and he's like, oh wow, or something, and she's like, that ain't it, and she just like lets out a huge fart, and I'm like, she's like, you're not gonna remember it anyway, and I'm like, yes. So this is a funny movie. You get some good laughs in this. They're connecting at this point. Their relationship is deepening, even though he only remembers her for this one day or whatever. And she has a lot of self-reflection moments here. This is when she really reflects on who she is and that she's a bad person and all this stuff. And it gives her character a lot more depth because you've come to like her at this point and root for her.
Right.
But she really starts to want to be a better person here and realize that this experience has really taught her that she is a shitty person. And she tells Carter that her mother died and they share the same birthday, and that really affected her, and that her mom wouldn't be proud of who she's become. And this whole movie, her dad's been trying to get a hold of her.
Right.
And she keeps blowing him off.
Yeah, like literally the first time she dies, she's walking through a horde of people and she's on her phone. And I honestly, I've seen this movie a few times now. I just realized it's a voicemail from her dad saying, I can't believe you stood me up.
Yeah, he's been sitting there for like an hour waiting for her. Yeah. While they're sitting at the cafe, another story comes on, or the same story comes on about the killer in the hospital. His name is John Toombs, and she's like, oh my god, he's been here the whole time. That's who's killing me. She's finally
putting it together.
Yeah, that's who's fucking killing me. And so she goes to the hospital, and she tells the receptionist, he's going to escape. Of course, the receptionist is like, what the fuck, crazy bitch?
Right,
like,
exactly.
Who are you? And she sees an axe, which, are these things still around? They may be, and I may just not know it, but do people just still keep, like, axes for firemen in glass cases? They might. I honestly don't know. But there is one, and she breaks the glass, and she gets it. And it doesn't really help her, because the killer has a gun, and has already killed a cop.
Right.
And he basically, after a struggle, corners her, and right as he's about to shoot her, Carter tackles him. Yeah. He ends up coming out of the wings and tackles him, But, this is kind of, he gets his neck snapped. Yeah. Like, turned around, almost. And she basically beats the killer over the head, but realizes if she doesn't reset, then Carter is gone for good. Because she's actually doing pretty well. She, she beats him over the head, it slows him down. So she has a shot, but then she realizes if she wins, Carter doesn't get to come back. Which really sucks, because obviously she's like, he just gave his life to save me. And she hangs herself. Yeah. There's a bell tower at this Bayfield University hospital, and the killer's chasing her up the stairs the whole time, but she beats him up there, and she puts the rope around her neck and hangs herself. But this time she comes back really nice and positive, and she wants to make changes because she had that moment of self-reflection when she was with Carter at the diner. So she comes back, and he says something like, you can come back and be whoever you want to be. So this time she chooses to be a really good person.
Right. She's very, very different from the other character that we've seen.
She hugs Carter, and she's like, thank you so much for saving me and giving your life for me. And he's like, the fuck? I don't know you. Like,
Meanwhile, his roommate keeps opening the door, calling her a fine vagina. And this time she spanks him, calls him a naughty boy, and then walks out.
Yeah, I really like her character in this, especially her development. How much you just really root for her and then grow to actually like her is awesome. But she goes back to her sorority house, and the same Danielle stops her again on the staircase, like, oh, like,
wait, isn't that when she signed the petition and
exactly.
She told the people about the sprinkler, gave some guy a pillow.
Yeah, she grabbed Carter's pillow. They were doing a fraternity was not doing like a full-on hazing, but they were putting their rushes through
99 bottles of beer on the wall
for 25 hours, and so this guy passes out, and she drops the pillow underneath him before his head hits the ground. So she's really like being a very positive
and she
person.
even tells Tim that, hey, you're gay,
it's okay,
go find someone
love
amazing.
Is love. Yeah. And Tim's like, the fuck? But she gets back to her sorority house, and Danielle is like, where the fuck were you? Blah, blah, blah. And she's like, his name is Carter, and if I make it through today, I'm going to have his babies. And she has this really sweet moment with her roommate, Lori. She's been a bitch to her, and she acknowledges that, but she basically says, I'm sorry for being shitty. And her roommate's like, okay. After she makes amends with her roommate, she interrupts the professor's class that he's teaching, and she ends it. And so she's making all these positive changes in her life. And then she finally goes to lunch with her dad. She shows up, and she has a really emotional, touching moment with her dad, and saying how much she has hated her birthday because it reminds her so much of her mom, and she hasn't been able to acknowledge it. And she's just been so sad, and she's sorry, and she wants to change that. But that doesn't do it justice to sum it up like that. They do a really good job with the emotional scenes in both of these movies. The first one and the second one, which we'll get to in a minute. Yeah. It really makes you feel. Especially if you've had loss of really any sort. The second one is
really hard.
Yeah, of any sort in your life. It really gets you. And they did a really good job. So again, you get that character connection with her. But after this emotional bullshit, she's ready for war. She's fucking done. So she goes back to the hospital. She tells the cop, there's a cop there guarding the killer, and she holds a knife to his neck.
Yeah, she does.
Which it also never answers. Like, I know that eventually people are like, oh, you were right, you have saved, whatever, there was a killer, blah, blah, blah. But I feel like even if you do a good deed, you're still going to get charged for holding a knife to it.
Exactly.
And it never goes back to that. Never says what happens. But the cop runs off and goes to get help, and she has stolen his gun at this point, too. She takes his gun when she's holding a knife to his neck. And Brad was like, it's just a security guard. And I was like, no, it said police.
Yeah. I mean, he's a serial killer, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Hasn't he killed multiple women?
Yeah.
He's a serial killer that has an actual cop on him.
Yeah, exactly. And there's no, threatening a police officer, assault with a deadly weapon, nothing. But she goes into the killer's hospital room, and somebody has freed him, or he has gotten free somehow from his restraints. And he's acting asleep, and she's like, I know you're not asleep. And he wakes up, and she has the safety on the gun.
Yeah.
And she starts shooting, and he's like, safety's on, sweetheart, and knocks it out of her hand. And there's a big struggle, and he roughs her up, and she gets the gun back, and she shoots him.
Well, first, she makes sure to time with the blackout, which is smart because she's lived all these days.
Yeah.
She knows exactly when the blackout is. She's got it timed on her watch.
Yeah.
That you see, and it blacks out. He can't find her, and it turns back on, and she's got the knife pointed at him and shoots him. It's great.
Yeah. And then it cuts to her sorority house. All the chaos is over. She's sitting on the floor of her bedroom with Carter.
Yeah, she's won. She killed the killer.
So now she gets to enjoy her cupcake.
She's sitting in the 16 candles.
Yeah, right. And she's got one little candle in this cupcake, and she blows it out, and she wakes up, and it's the same day again. And I wrote, oh, here's the twist on my notes. And she's like, what the fuck? She's furious, obviously. She just killed a killer.
Exactly.
And
it should be over.
Yeah, it should be over, but it's not. So she died somehow. And she gets back to the sorority house. She goes through the whole walk, and she's packing her shit to leave. She's like, I gotta get out of here. Yeah. What else do? You killed the killer. You thought you broke the cycle. And even though you killed the killer, you woke up. what the fuck? I would feel super, yeah. And it doesn't take her long, though. Lori's like, I made you a cupcake. And you just see the epiphany in her face.
Because she goes, yeah, I ate it last night. And then she realizes she did eat it last night.
And she died in her sleep. Because the cupcake was poisoned.
Right.
With the carbs.
With the carbs.
Carbs are not poisoned with carbs. And she puts together that Lori had to kill her, or tried to kill her. And you find out that Lori has also been banging the doctor.
Yep.
Which is why she was trying to get her to stop banging the doctor. But it's such a petty thing, too. She's like, he kept choosing you over me, you whore, or whatever. And it's like, he's fucking married, first of all.
Yeah, so he was already legally choosing someone else every single day anyway.
Right. Even if he wasn't, like, being faithful. It's like, you have... if he's doing it with one person, you can just bet he's doing it with other girls. Like,
exactly.
But I thought that was kind of a stupid... I guess not. I mean, it is just a petty reason. I guess girls have killed... There's countless, like, all of Snapped, like the TV show, you know?
Right.
But, she puts together that Lori had to kill her in another way because she would never eat. It was like, oh, there's too many carbs, or I don't have time, or I don't want it, whatever the case may be. She got interrupted, and she would never eat it. So Lori had to come after her in the baby mask and murder her. And they get into this cat fight. There's a big old cat fight in their room, and Lori ends up kicking her out the window.
Yeah, she does. And she splats right in front of the poor little girl who's been sitting there just listening to music on the steps. Totally traumatizes her. Yeah.
And it's so... I thought this was funny. And that's the whole movie, She goes through these days over and over and over and finally figures it out. And it was her roommate the whole time. It wasn't even the serial killer. And her roommate was the one that released the killer, though, because she knew...
It would give her the excuse of it was him.
She could frame the killer and get away scot-free, which is really smart.
Exactly.
And she goes to sleep again in Carter's dorm room. And he set the song to go off to wake her up, and she wakes up and he's in the same position, and he's like, oh, hey, I don't know if you remember me, you were pretty wasted last night, which is exactly what he's been saying. And she's like, oh my god, and he's like, oh no, I'm just kidding. I would be so... I don't even think that'd be a, you asshole.
Right.
I think I would be legitimately furious.
Because walk out. No cutesy fighting on the bed. Walk out.
This is like a traumatizing experience. And you're just like, I'm a pranker. Like, no. Maybe do it like, I don't know, in a couple weeks or something. But not the day after. That is so fucked up. But yeah, it ends with them play fighting on the bed or whatever. And
then they go to a diner. And he talks about Groundhog's Day. And she's never heard of it before. And he tries to explain it to her. And that's the end of the movie.
Yeah. So they, a lot of people were like, oh, they just remade Groundhog's Day. Well, they acknowledged that they,
in a lot of different ways. Because even her last name is Spangler.
Right.
Which is Ghostbusters. So, yeah, they did a really good job.
So this is a rated PG-13 movie. And again, it... kind of horror. It's more like a horror comedy, I guess. It's got some, of course, horror aspects with the kills, but the writer, Scott Lobdell, which commented on our Instagram today.
That was very exciting.
I know. We posted a little picture that we saw Happy Death Day to you, and he's like, oh, I'm the creator of Happy Death Day. I approve this message. And I was like, oh my god, it was really cool. So if you go to our Instagram, which is at the Exorcisters Podcast, on our picture of our tickets for Happy Death Day 2, the creator of Happy Death Day, who also works on Marvel Comics, and he's done a lot of the X-Men stuff. He worked on the Daredevil TV show, commented. So that was really neat. That made our day, because we are still very new, and so to see that, we were really excited. But anyways, he originally wrote a rated R script, and that he wanted the kills to be a lot more gruesome, but the director was like, let's cut it down to PG-13. And there's things to be said about that. These are like teen horror movies, the ones you'd go to in like middle school and high school, that are PG-13, but that doesn't mean they're bad movies by any means.
Is the second one still PG-13?
I think so. And he wrote it in 2007, and it was originally supposed to be Michael Bay and Megan Fox, like the Transformers movies.
So it's just going to be explosions all the way through.
I was thinking about that. I was like, that would have been interesting. I'm glad they didn't do that, because I liked, is it a horror movie? No. But it was a fun movie, and I don't think Michael Bay would have done, no offense to Michael Bay, but And it had a $4.8 million budget. But most Blumhouse movies are pretty low budget. That's why they do so well.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's why they do so well, because they're killing it on the profits. What really bothered me when I saw this movie in 2017, we saw it in theaters with our friend Jessica and Kayla. So we had a girls' night and went to see Happy Death Day. And I don't know if you remember, I walked out of the theater and I was pissed.
We were moving along, bebopping. We're like, this is great. And then it just ends. And we're like...
I was so mad. And not because it was a bad movie, but because you don't... How did this happen? Why did this... Like, I know why, because you're a jealous bitch, but how was this possible? We're just supposed to accept that this day just kept resetting over and over and over and over?
Why her?
Yeah.
What?
You don't get any answers like that. But I found out when I was researching it, originally they had it in the script to explain it a little bit, but they omitted it because I didn't know this at the time, but there was a sequel. And so the Happy Death Day to You goes into that. So that's why they took it out of the first one. But man, when I left the first one, I was like, why though? How is that possible?
Which we'll talk about it in a minute, but there's still one thing that they didn't explain even in the second one. And they are considering another sequel, so I really hope it's answered in that one, because it is bothering me.
Yeah, well, maybe you'll get, if they do a third one, which apparently there was a credit scene in the second one.
We did miss that, you guys. I'm sorry.
Not that we bailed because we were like, oh, gotta get out. I had to pee so bad. It's like, I gotta go. So, Happy Death Day to You starts the day after Tree's birthday. Literally just picks right up where the first one left off.
Right. Literally as they're laying on the bed play fighting.
Yeah.
It's there. It's that part.
But this time, it's not from her perspective. Right now. It's...
This part isn't from her perspective.
It's Ryan. So he's the roommate that just kept barging in.
The fine vagina.
Saying like, oh, you hate that fine vagina. And it's him. And he's kind of like the doofus friend. And it's kind of showing his story. And... he's a science major, and he's working on this thesis project. It's this weird machine that kind of reminded me of... Have you seen Spider-Man 2 with Doc Ock? Kind of reminded me of that machine. It was kind of like... cuts out all the energy, and it's showing his story. And it's interesting because he wakes up in his car because he slept in there because Tree spent the night in the dorm room, and, you know, you can't have that. So he's asleep in his car, and he gets up, and... he's going through the same thing Tree did. This dog tries to bite him, and he almost, this guy on the skateboard almost takes him out, and there's a
homeless guy behind the tree.
The homeless guy behind the tree scares the shit out of him, and he goes in, and, you know, he's like, she's here again, which is exactly what he said in the first one. It's just a mirror of the first one.
Which is exactly perfect. They say it exactly like the first one. So it fascinates me.
It's almost like they never stopped filming.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, did they film all this other part knowing that there was going to be a sequel that soon? Yeah. Or were those actors just that perfect?
Because if they watched it and studied it over and over. Yeah. And he gets called into basically the science center, and he's working on this project. That's his thesis project, and it's this machine, and you find out that's what caused the blackouts in the first one.
Right.
Was this machine that he's working on because it is such an energy suck.
Yeah. Their dean is mad.
Oh, super pissed. And because the dean is so mad about these blackouts, he shuts down the project, and they're going to confiscate this machine. And so he's like sitting on this couch and pouting, and then an unknown number texts him a picture of himself sitting on the couch. Can you imagine?
Yeah, that's so creepy. No.
If someone took a picture of us from behind right now when we're recording and sent it to us.
F that. No.
Lose my fucking mind. And he's like, what the hell? And he gets multiple photos of him in real time. Of somebody like behind him or next to him or whatever. So of course he's really freaked out. So he goes into the science lab to investigate and doesn't turn on the fucking light. He doesn't turn on the light.
Right.
Why do they always do that? Like, why? God. Have they never seen a scary movie?
Right.
And his friends scare the shit out of him. Of course, it's like building up the suspense again. Typical horror movie. He's walking real slow. Like, what the fuck is going on?
You gotta have the little jump scare that actually doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, it's his friends. They scare the shit out of him. And I literally put in here, cheap jump scare. And then the killer stabs him. And he wakes up in his car. Just like in the opening scene. And the killer's in the baby mask. Like, it's all the same as the first one. And he wakes up in his car and he goes to the date. He knows the dog's going to bite him. he throws, what was it, a rock or something
Yes.
at the homeless dude behind the bush, and the homeless dude's like, what the fuck, man? It's so funny. And then the guy with the skateboard and all these things.
There are so many funny parts.
This movie was so
hilarious.
Funny. It was also a fun movie to watch. Like,
this one's not a horror movie,
No,
you
no, no.
guys. It really isn't. There's only a couple deaths, and they're not really that scary, but it is super funny.
when the writer of Happy Death Day, the creator, commented on our Instagram, I, of course, went and followed him. I was like, oh, fuck, this is cool. And I was going through his posts, and for the first one, he posted this photo, and he said, he called it the little movie that could, because he wrote it in 2007. It didn't get picked up for 10 years. And he's basically just talking about how exciting it was to see all the love and hard work. And it says on his Instagram that it was so exciting seeing how many people responded to all the love and hard work that went into telling Tree's fable of redemption, even if it was subversively disguised as a horror flick.
Right.
Is exactly what he says, which I don't have any hate towards that.
No.
It's a good way to get people a PG-13
Yep.
weekend movie, that's not a bad movie at all.
I was actually pretty upset that people were saying this was a horror movie, and it wasn't a horror movie until the creator even mentioned that. Mm-hmm. I was like, okay, I'm cool with that now.
As long as we have an understanding.
Exactly.
Yeah. Because we were even like, when I got home from the movies, Brad was like, how was it? And I was like, well, it's going to be hard to review a horror movie that's not a horror movie.
Exactly.
But it wasn't a bad movie at all.
At all.
And there
Super good.
are some formula horror things. There are some suspenseful lurking and killing, but it's even less than the first one. Mm-hmm. And he walks into the dorm room, and Tree and Carter are there, and he's like, I'm living the same day over and over. And she's like, did you get killed? And he's like, yeah. And she's like,
she just knows.
I know what's going on. I know exactly what's going on. And so now they're like, we got to fucking figure out why. And he tells him he's having deja vu, and she knows what he's going through. And her and Carter are like, but who's the killer this time? Mm-hmm. Because she got rid of Lori.
She got rid of both
killers. Toombs and Lori.
Yeah. And
she recaps her experience, and he doesn't believe her. So she makes him...
he lays down on the bed and tries to go back to sleep thinking it's a dream.
And they're like, nah, man, it ain't that easy. And they take her back to where he died. Like, they go back to the lab where he got stabbed, and she's, arming herself because she's been through this. And there's a supply closet, which is where the killer came out of.
She does so good. Yeah. She's like, she's ready.
You know what she doesn't do, though?
Yeah. I know what you're going to say.
Turn on the fucking light.
She does not do that.
Turns on the light.
But there is another girl who is smart enough and does.
Yeah,
Once again, right. The men don't, but the girl does.
Right. I don't need no light. Nothing happens. They don't find the killer in this room. But they figure out that there's this science project that he's been working on is made of proton lasers and some other stuff that I didn't catch when I was trying to make notes in a movie theater. Trying to prove that they can slow down time on a molecular level. And then they realize this is what created the time loop. And she's so mad. She's like, all of this is because of your dumbass. I would be too. Mm-hmm. Figure it out. So they have to figure out how to close the loop before the killer finds you again. Right. Is the whole thing here. So Tree, Carter, Ryan, and then the two friends. I didn't catch their name because, again, I was in the back of a movie theater trying to take notes, and I just didn't catch everything. Yeah. But these two friends that have been working on this project with Ryan are all helping. They're all in on this. And Tree kind of has this crisis. She thought that she was stuck in her death, basically to face her mom's death and become a better person. And so she's kind of upset that it ended up being a scientific fluke. She thought that she was chosen because, for a reason to face something. And she wasn't. And so, but they all go, they're like, where's somewhere safe we can all go? And then somebody suggests, a basketball game because there's safety in numbers, basically, but there are masks everywhere because it's school spirit, this is their school mask. And, of course, the fire alarm goes off, and Ryan gets separated from the group and the mom, and he sees the hooded mask coming towards him.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of masks around, but there's one that's literally staring him down.
And going the opposite direction of everybody else to get to him. And so then he realizes it, and it brandishes a knife, and so it's like... Yeah. He runs into a stairwell. Nothing good ever happens there, is what I said. But it leads to like a storage type of room. And there are these baby masks and t-shirts and...
Which, why?
I don't know. They were like...
creepy?
Yeah, it was literally to be creepy. And all of the friends are coming after him, basically. But the killer is almost on him, and Tree finds him and knocks him out. I'm sorry, Tree finds him and knocks the killer out before the killer can stab Ryan. And then all the friends...
Which is awesome.
Yeah. And then all the friends come in and they unmask him. And this was kind of weird. It was Ryan.
Yeah.
Ryan was trying to kill Ryan. It was like it looked like a clone, basically,
right.
of Ryan. And they tied the clone, quote unquote, up. Right. And they're like, what the fuck? And this is very butterfly effect-ish.
Yes.
Like...
It was very cool and very different. But it doesn't come back ever again in the rest of the movie.
No, Ryan turns on the machine and the clone yells at him to stop because he's going to ruin everything. Because he's from the future or whatever. And the machine surges and knocks everyone off their feet in slow motion.
And it's great. There's a yoo-hoo just going through the air.
I know, it was a really funny scene. Because the dean's in there trying to shut this down. Like it's, And then the surge knocks...
Is that when he has the wrench?
I think so.
There's 2 security guards that come in, and there's this teenage kid with a wrench, and even the dean's like, he's just a teenage kid, just get the wrench from him. But all the security guards are like, oh god, oh no, it's gonna hit me.
Yeah, they're not cops. But this surge knocks Tree back into her repetitive death day. So we're back to... I thought going into this movie it was going to be all about Ryan's death day, but it's not. It knocks Tree back into exactly what happened to her in the first movie.
But it's different.
It is. So Ryan comes in as he has, the whole time, like, oh, did you hit that fine vagina? And she freaks out. And she's like, you sent me back, you have to fix it. And he's like, who the fuck are you? Because he doesn't, she's back at square one.
Right.
And she goes back, she's like, okay, I got to go kill Lori. But the day doesn't pan out like it should. I mean, it's all thrown off.
Right. And this is the first time you realize that something's wrong. Because just as they walk in, Ryan knows Lori. And that hasn't been known before. That's weird. But we also didn't know a lot about Ryan. So maybe he did. Maybe he didn't.
Right. But the biggest thing is there's no poison cupcake this time.
There's no cupcake at all. She's just like, what?
I didn't make you shit. And then you figure out that they'd start discussing a multiverse theory. So it's a dimension movie. There are different dimensions. And she got knocked into a different dimension.
Not a time loop.
Right. In this theory, her boyfriend is the sorority house leader, Danielle's boyfriend. And Danielle's actually, like, she's still kind of snobby.
But mainly...
But she's actually, like, really nice and charitable.
Yeah, she's better. Much better.
She's still snobby and, whatever. But she definitely is a lot nicer. She goes to meet her dad for lunch. Because, she had decided she's going to be a better person when she already went through this. And it's her birthday again. And she goes to meet her dad for lunch, and in this dimension, she goes to the restaurant, and her mom is sitting at the table.
Right.
And in this dimension, her mom is alive, which brings a whole another element to this story. Right. Why, at this point, why do you go back to the other one? And I literally wrote in this, wow, this kind of fucked me up.
Yeah, and she, like, loses it. She hugs her so hard, like anyone would.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, if I put myself in the same position and I'm, thinking my dad's been dead for, in her case, it was 3 years, and I go somewhere and I just see my dad in the flesh, I would have lost it worse than her. She's just kind of crying like, oh my God, I missed you so much. Yeah. I would have probably fell to my knees and started sobbing. And then it's like, it brings in this whole nother element to the story, like I said, and it really gives it a lot more emotional depth. You go into this movie thinking, kind of like the first one, it's just going to be a, teen kind of horror-ish,
there's not much
comedy.
To it.
Yeah, and it can still be a good movie, and there are some themes, like the writer said, of redemption and, character change and things like that. But I did not expect, this movie has some emotional depth.
Absolutely.
Like intense emotional depth around this.
I know
death.
It was hard for me to watch some of it.
Yeah.
So I can only imagine.
Oh yeah, it gets worse too. I even wrote in my notes, I wouldn't go back.
Absolutely
at
not.
this point, I'd be like, oh, okay, I'm fine. Don't fix it. If I relive this day every day and I get to see my deceased parent, I'm good.
Which
I'm
is what she does.
Yeah.
They start to try and fix it, and she goes tearing in there going, don't. Which, no, don't.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Carter's not my boyfriend, but, like, my mom's alive, so
yeah. Would you choose boyfriend over dead parent? Yeah. I mean, come on.
I would definitely choose parent, Yeah. Like, if I never got to see, or anybody that I loved that was gone forever. Jesus Christ. That is some deep shit.
She can find another love interest.
Yeah. and that's when she runs into the lab and it's initializing. And right as it's initializing, she decides she wants to leave it. But in this dimension, the professor who she's been sleeping with, the wife finds out that finds out that somebody's been sleeping with. Because in the other one, if you remember, Lori was also sleeping with the professor. So you hear this just kind of off the cuff, like, oh, who the fuck is she? Na. Tree just kind of hears that happening off, like they're on campus grounds or something like that. Tree goes back to her original, she knows that killer is there because she's already lived this, and she knows he's going to escape, so she runs back to the hospital and grabs the axe, but the cop handcuffs her this time. The cop gets her this time, though. She doesn't pull one on the cop pulls one on her, and she handcuffs her, and then she finds out that it's not Lori or Toombs. That's the killer this time. So we don't know who the killer is in this dimension. So there's still another mystery that has to be solved. She's basically telling Lori there is a killer here, but they get in an elevator together and the killer cuts the power. They open up to a floor that's under construction, and of course
there's always one
there's
under
tarps hanging and all these like things that he can hide behind, and there's like flickering lights
under construction in horror movies.
Yeah, always. It's
great.
Always.
I literally
said, I said flickering lights, classic.
Classic.
Lori gets stabbed and Tree's running away handcuffed.
And she does so good.
Yeah,
once again to survive.
Yeah.
She does like this duck move and it's great.
Yeah. And she wakes up because she runs off the top of the building.
Yes.
She's like running away so hardcore that she doesn't even pay attention to where she's going, and she just runs off the top of the building, and she's like, rookie move. Yeah. Rookie move, Tree. So she wakes up and makes Ryan meet her in the lab, and she wants to stay in this dimension, but she also wants this loop closed so that she doesn't have to keep living this. So she wants to basically figure out a way to where they can close this loop so she can just live in this dimension.
Right. And she comments, so this whole time she's been wearing the same grungy, gross clothes every single day. And yes, I made a comment too. I was like, is she only going to wear that one outfit? And then she actually makes the comment, and it was great.
She was like, I
fulfilled it.
Gotta get out of these clothes.
Yes, it was awesome. I was so happy.
But to get this loop closed, they basically have to figure out an algorithm, and she has to remember the failed ones. Because they're like, it'll take us days and days and days to test all of these different formulas. So the only way for us to get this done is if you remember the ones that have already failed.
Which, I'm not saying she's not smart. She probably is, but we're basically going for this sorority sister that acted like a bitchy ditz before, and now she's supposed to remember quantum mechanics.
Yeah, and she even got through her bio class.
Yeah,
she was
he
sleeping
helped
with the
her.
Professor. Yeah, and also that. But the professor, when she cuts it off, was like, "You can't skate through my class anymore." She's
That's
like, "I'm already dropped it."
Oh,
okay. Yeah. I thought you meant like a tutor or something.
No, I mean like he helped the grade book for her.
Ew. But she does a really good job. She starts writing things down and memorizing them. And one of the other people working on this project basically is like, if you don't want to get killed, you could just kill yourself in creative ways, which was probably one of my favorite parts, was just her coming up with ways to, I know that sounds dark, but it's a comedy.
Does that not glorify suicide? I mean, we have so many other shows nowadays that are saying that.
Yeah. But I think the way that this show does it, it's like, she knows she's going to come back. She knows she's not dying for real.
Yeah, that's true.
It's not like 13 Reasons Why, where it's like, oh, Hannah Baker got all the attention because she died.
She jumps out of a plane. Doesn't that kind of... I'm not saying people are going to want to do it, but maybe someone goes, maybe that looks like fun. I don't know.
Wrote down she gets creative and funny with her death. These suicide scenes are hilarious. Yeah. She jumps out of a plane in a bikini. I also made a note. How the fuck did she get into that plane unnoticed in a bikini?
How did she land right in front of them?
Yeah. She landed right in front of
to
Carter and Danielle.
To traumatize the hell out of them is great.
Yeah. I'm assuming she went up fully clothed, and then as they're,
that's
but
true.
I was like,
just sign up for the class and then take everything off. And wander out.
Who the fuck?
That was the best one.
How did anybody not notice that? I don't know, because she also jumps into a wood chipper.
That's horrifying. Oh my god.
She just dives into a wood chipper.
I was just like, no.
And
A little fact about the wood chipper, it says on the side it belongs to Biff's tree removal service. And just like they called back to Groundhog Day in the first one, because everyone's like, oh, it's just Groundhog Day. The movie acknowledges that it got some themes from that.
Catch that.
Yeah, Biff's tree removal, which is a call to Biff Tannen in Back to the Future 2.
Because
the plots are similar.
That's awesome.
And they also, Ryan and Carter mentioned to her, oh, it's like Back to the Future 2. And she's like, what? I've never seen it. And she says in the first one, what's Groundhog's Day? You know, so it's just a little interesting little tidbit there. But after she kills herself a couple times, it's the same thing as the first one. She wakes up and she's getting pains in her stomach and she passes out. It's taking a toll on her body. And again, she wakes up in the hospital.
Which, was she not the same body as the last movie? Wasn't she already dying in the last movie? I'm very confused.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like they want you to buy into this kind of being its own day all over again. Even though she's already been through this and she already knows this. Because the doctor she had an affair with, he doesn't know her in this.
Right. He has no idea who she even is.
Yeah, in this dimension. So he comes in and he's like, you should be dead. And she's like, Gregory. And he's like, I don't know you. But of course she gets out of her hospital bed and she actually knocks out the cop and takes his gun because she knows, or she thinks Laurie's about to be killed.
Right.
By the serial killer. And in this dimension, she loves Laurie. Laurie is actually her friend in this dimension and not trying to kill her. So she's sneaking around this hospital with a gun and she sees a blood trail, of course. She goes into a room with lots of curtains, like an ER room, and of course they're all pulled, and finds Laurie dead on the floor and the killer behind her. And she shoots the killer and you see that it's Toombs. Right. It's the serial killer. But another killer pops up and we don't find out who he is because she blows them both up.
Right. Which is cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And she comes back and she goes back to the lab because she dies too. And now there's only one algorithm left to try and it works. So they're like, oh, yep, this is it. So we just have to initialize it.
I love it. She just spells it out on the board and they're just watching her like,
because they
don't. Crap.
And they also, something else that the movie asks you to buy, and Chris Stuckman talked about this, and it was a really good point, and so I'm kind of reiterating his point. And I thought about this during the movie. Each day she comes back, she has to tell them this over and over and over again. And it just cuts that all out, obviously, because you don't want to see the same thing, but it just makes you buy that they're like, oh yeah, okay. And not like, are you fucking kidding me? It just like, they're like, oh, okay. And she shows them all these crazy things.
I mean, they're definitely surprised that this ditzy looking blonde girl is so good at this math, but the other stuff, they're just kind of like, okay, well, we've reached that point now.
Right. Now that she knows this algorithm will work and they've got the final one, is it boyfriend or mom? Now she's got this decision to make. And just like I would, she decides to stay in the dimension with her mom.
Absolutely.
But at this point she has realized, she's looking at like pictures on her phone and stuff, and she's realizing that even though she's in this dimension, none of the memories are hers. She doesn't remember. She's looking at pictures of her mom and videos, and she's like, I don't remember any of this. So it's not just like she got into this dimension and now she is this tree.
Right.
That's not what happened. And of course there's this climactic, something doesn't work, and there's a virus on the computer because Lydia decided to watch porn. So they have to manually re-enter all the coding, which Ryan says will take 6 to 7 hours. And Carter makes the point to Tree that if she stays in this dimension, she's living a life that's not hers. And she could say she has an opportunity to actually say goodbye to her mom, which a lot of people don't get.
Right.
Which, I'll get there in a minute, but oof. And so she meets with her parents and tells them that she needs to get as far away from campus as possible so she can make it through the day and Ryan can finish the coding so she can stay in this dimension.
Right.
And Ryan finishes the coding and goes to close the loop, basically, is what he's doing. And Tree's with her family, and her mom brings up a memory of theirs, and again, she's like, no, I don't remember that. Yeah. She's realizing that she shouldn't stay, basically, because she's living a life, like he said, that's not hers. And she also tries to get away, and Carter's mad because she runs away, but she knows Laurie's going to get killed. And she's like, I can't save everyone at the expense of myself anymore, which I gotta give her kudos, honestly. Like, we all should do more for ourselves and less, people pleasing. That's a different theme, but so Carter's like, okay, fine, I'll go to the hospital and save Lori since you won't. And Tree's with her parents in a hotel room, and she sits down and she has this great scene with her mom, and she's like, if you had to choose between Dad or her husband and losing someone she was close to, what would she choose? And she said, I would choose your dad 1,000,000 times over because he gave me you. And that's kind of a messed up scene, honestly. Like,
yeah, definitely is.
It's like she's choosing between her mom being dead and this boy at the surface. It's deeper than that, of course, but at the surface, it's like, boy or dead mom. It's like, that sucks. And she knows that. It's not like she's not taking that decision to heart. But she realizes that she's watching the news in that hotel room, and she realizes that Carter got killed trying to save Lori. And so she realizes if she doesn't go back, just like in the first one, Carter will stay dead. Mm-hmm. And obviously she doesn't want that. So she races back to the school. She steals her dad's car, and she races back to the school, and she realizes she can't get there, so she crashes her car.
Well, she can't get a hold of Ryan first.
Right, yeah.
And he's getting ready to start this machine, which is going to close everything.
Right.
So
and that'll be it.
It's kind of perfect. She not only kills herself to restart it and save him, but she also takes out this power plant, which cuts the power off to his machine.
She crashes the car into the...
Smart.
Yeah, into the power grid, which is smart. And she wakes up and she basically decides that she should go back to her other dimension because this is not the life that she's supposed to be living, which is tough. That's tough. And before she does that, she wants to tie up some loose ends. She gives Lori some life advice, dude's not worth it,
Because Lori is the one that's...
sleeping with the doctor.
Yeah.
The married doctor. Yeah.
In this dimension.
And this, I didn't cry, but I was really close to losing it. She goes to her last lunch with her parents, both of her parents. And she sits down and she asks her dad to talk to her mom alone, and she wants to say goodbye to her mom. Without her mom being sick, She gets to say a healthy goodbye. And she tells her how much she loves her, and she's really sentimental, and it's a really wonderful scene. And it killed me inside. Like, oh my God, it was rough because I was just putting myself in that situation with my father that is also dead. And, like, there's a lot of things that you would do to talk to a loved one again, and that kind of fucked me up, to be honest with you. And that... I think that's why, at first I was like, this movie is meh, but when they brought in some really, truly emotional depth to it, I was like, okay, this movie's more than the surface level.
Right.
Still not a horror movie.
No.
But when it's time to finally go back, and she's accepted this and said goodbye to her mom, the cops come early, or the security guards, and they... when it's almost time to send her back, it gets taken and confiscated. And she said that she's like, I can't die again. I don't think I'll wake up this time.
Right.
I think I'll be dead for good. So they come up with a plan to steal the machine back from the dean, which he is locked in his office. And then, they're like, I can't get expelled, and Ryan has this dramatic hero music and is like, let's do this. We gotta help. We're the ones that did this. Man, whatever. But they get Danielle, the head of the sorority house, involved. And
I loved her so much in this scene. That is my favorite scene ever.
She alludes that she's acting in plays earlier. And so they're like,
trying to act blind.
Hey, can you act like a blind girl and wander the dean knits at night in like the teacher's lounge thing? And she goes in and basically creates a diversion. She acts like she's blind, so she's falling all over herself.
She's a French blind person.
Yes. And she's falling all over herself and breaking things. And
breaking his nose with her cane.
Yeah.
And, oh my God, it's great. And then she gets caught up in this rug while they're trying to get the dean's keys.
Yeah.
She gets caught up in this rug. He finally gets her out, and her hair's all messed up, and she's pretending to be French, and she goes, gracias. I lost it.
It does, like we said, it has some really good humor in it. I will definitely probably buy this and watch it for fun.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. But they get the key. Daniel ends up running and getting the keys, running back as the dean's distracted. It's a pretty funny scene. But they get the keys, and they get it. They have to redo the coding. And then, so while they're redoing the coding, Trey's like, fuck. She goes to try to save Lori. And this time, she puts a gun to the cop's head while he's peeing. And he pees forever. She's like, no, you can finish. It's like, and this pee scene lasts forever. Oh my gosh. Some of the comedy hit in this and some of the comedy missed, but it was, you know, comic relief because she's about to do this big whole dramatic thing, and she shoots the serial killer, Toombs, and saves Lori. But Gregory is the killer after Lori. But there's more. He's trying to kill Lori because his wife found out about Lori's affair. But twist, his wife is in on it too. Mm-hmm. And what's weird though is the wife is like, you think I'm gonna let some little slut ruin my life? Man. And she's like, I'm gonna kill you and you, talking to Tree and Lori. Because they've been knocked down at some point, and, you know.
Lori's been shot, and she's just laying there bleeding on the ground. She's not dead, but...
She got shot in, like, the stomach, yeah. And twist.
Good thing she's in a
another
hospital.
Twist, yeah. Gregory also kills his wife.
Yeah.
It just is like, fuck all these women.
I'm not going through a divorce. It's like, you're going through something way worse
He just kills her. So he's like, I'm going to kill Lori, I'm going to kill Tree, and I'm going to kill my wife all at once. What are you going to do after that?
Exactly.
What's the plan? I know the plan was to frame the killer, but like...
Do you continue to work at that hospital? Do you shoot yourself? I don't...
And also, the killer Toombs has already been killed, and cops are pretty good at putting together a sequence of events.
Yeah.
Based on how much he's bled out and then what else happened. So, like, poor planning. And he starts chasing after Tree eventually because Lori's, you know, on the ground, and so Tree's
just
gonna...
bleeding out. Yeah.
Tree's gonna take him on herself, and I thought this was an interesting kill. They run into an MRI room.
Yeah, I am confused about one thing though.
Why was it in there?
No.
Oh, okay.
It talks about the MRI being a huge magnet, which I get. That's what it is. Wouldn't it have yanked the buttons off of her jacket?
Maybe they were plastic.
Confused.
Yeah. They looked metal.
She's wearing like a denim jacket. I assumed those buttons were metal of some sort.
Right.
Should have yanked it off, right?
Yeah. But she's holding a screwdriver as what she's been carrying around as her weapon.
Yeah, which is great.
And he comes in and he's standing right in front of the MRI, and she sees the button to turn it on, and there's a wheelchair next to her, and she turns it on, the wheelchair pins him against the MRI machine, and she basically gets the screwdriver in position and then lets go, and it stabs him and kills him. It was a very creative kill. It was. I have to give it that. After that, I put the thingy finally worked.
The thingy.
So it sends her back to her dimension. And it finally worked.
While shattering glass and doing this perfect, beautiful kiss
Carter
scene.
comes and she's like, I'm going back to be your girlfriend. And then they kiss and there are sparks flying. It's very intentionally cheesy, like tongue-in-cheek. It's very
80s, which is, I think that's what they're
Because
going for.
they did the
this.
16 candles thing in the first one.
They're talking about Back to the Future and all this. It's a very 80s kiss lovey scene. So that was a good one.
This movie is very self-aware. The writing is very self-aware. It doesn't pretend to be anything that it's not.
No.
You know, other than marketing as a horror movie to get people there, I feel like. But it's still not a bad movie at all. And like I said, it's very tongue-in-cheek and aware of what it is. And she goes back into her dimension and ta-da. Now we're set up for a third one. And so, you know, she's back and all is right, except, of course, her mother is gone, but she's got this at least sense of she got to say goodbye and some closure with that. And, you know, this movie, I liked it. I can't say this enough, not a horror movie, but...
So funny.
It's a funny movie. It's got some kills.
And so sad.
Yeah, it's just got a lot to offer, which I really like. And it is set up for a third one. So, you know, I know we don't have a lot of, like... factoids to talk about. It's still a new movie. But...
I'm still stuck with, and this is the one thing I really hope they finally explain in the third one, but they explain how it happened. They don't explain why it's Tree. She's not the closest one to the lab. She doesn't do experiments there. She really has nothing to do with that experiment. There are so many other people. You watch Ryan walk through. There's so many other people in this dorm right now. Why her?
Yeah.
That's my one question.
And she even gets upset because she thought the why was to some cosmic universal reason to face her mom's death, but she ends up saying it was just like a scientific accident. So you don't know why it's her. And that's what this movie also asks you to do. The first one I was pissed because I wanted to know the why. And then there was a second one. And this one, it's like, again, there's another big why. And so there's talks of a third one. Again, there was a credit scene that we missed. So I'm not quite sure what that sets up. But it is set up for a third one. And if the third one comes out, I'll probably go see it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. If you'd like to join our little podcast family, I'm going to give some social medias. On Facebook, we are the Exorcisters Podcast. On Instagram, we are also at the Exorcisters Podcast. And on Twitter, we are just at the Exorcisters. Please, again, feel free to email us if you have any paranormal stories or comments or anything you would like to share. It is theexorcisters@gmail.com, and we are available on Apple, Spotify, Podbean, Pocket Casts, and our YouTube channel, which is also the Exorcisters Podcast.
And next week, we're going to delve into the case file of the Warrens. Until then, stay creepy.